Hello, all you beauties and beasties out there. Welcome to Beauties and Beasts, the podcast of all things Beauty and the Beast. I'm DF, and today's topic was voted on by my $3 plus patrons and has been on the polls for quite some time now, but kept coming in second. Actually, it's no surprise that this was chosen eventually, given the number of anime fans I seem to attract on this podcast. Or more accurately, Japanese animation fans, as it's up to debate whether Studio Ghibli films should be classified as anime. Yep, Beauty and the Beast plus Studio Ghibli. If you're a fan, you've guessed it right. We're discussing the 2004 film Howl's Moving Castle, based on the 1986 novel by Diana Wynne Jones. Yes, Howl's Moving Castle is one of my favorite Studio Ghibli films, though it is vastly different from its original source novel. It's kind of like Beauty and the Beast meets The Wizard of Oz. And what's interesting about the Beauty and the Beast couple here is that they're both under a spell, and both of them have to change in some way in order to break that curse. Not so much for each other, but more for themselves. Alright, before we get into this, I'd like to thank my $5 plus patrons, Anime Guy 1101, Arvin Joshua Rocks 15, Bella PinkSavage, Cosmic Trail, and TyrannosaurusVenom. Thank you for your continuing support. And we've got Bella PinkSavage and Cosmic Trail in the chat today. Cosmic Trail says, I watched Howl's Moving Castle for the first time today. I finished watching it half an hour ago. Pretty fresh mind. So you'll know what we're talking about. That's good. You've done your homework. You too can join these live streams by becoming a patron today and support my creative projects. Just go to that Become a Patron button or go to the link patron.podbean.com/beautiesandbeasts. That's patron.podbean.com/beautiesandbeasts. Or another way to support my projects, buy my merchandise on Redbubble. The holiday season is upon us, and as per my tradition, 10% of my proceeds of November and December will go to the Make-A-Wish Foundation, which helps grant the wishes of children suffering from critical illnesses. And I know we can do our part to help them have a Merry, Merry Christmas. I have Christmas and non-Christmas holiday merch available, from LGBT pride trees to Happy Holidays, I'm Jewish products, from shirts to buttons to pillows to mugs to aprons to bags. Lots of potential gifts. And the best gift of 2020, face masks. Adult masks, small masks, kids masks, fitted masks, masks for the whole family. Stay safe this holiday season and wear your mask in public. All I want for Christmas is COVID-19 gone, so do your part to stop the spread. I mean it, okay? It's been a hard year. Can we please be courteous at the end of it? Okay, and by the way, $3 plus patrons are able to vote on episode topics. But the weird thing about the poll that was meant for episode 51, it was a 3-way tie. Just FYI. Yeah, it was deciding between Disney's Zombies, Thumbelina by Hans Christian Andersen, and The Ancient Magus Bride. I don't know what's going on with you guys, but it ended up with a 3-way tie. So, those of you patrons who are in the chat today, I'll give you a moment to think about it, and we'll decide at the end of the stream. Yeah, I know. I hate it when it ties up like this. Now, the Studio Ghibli adaptation of Howl's Moving Castle deviates from the book a lot. It might have to do with the difference in British and Japanese culture and storytelling. Nothing wrong with that, but might have been a factor. Most of my listeners and I think fans in general are more familiar with the movie than the book, so I will be talking mostly about the movie and mentioning some of the most significant changes from the book. But movie or book, the message is pretty much the same, and author Diana Wynne Jones actually got herself a private screening of the film. So, we start off in a made-up European-like country, pseudo-late 19th century, I think. Difference is that there is magic and wizards exist, and, at least in the movie, is a bit steampunk. with more dirigibles and airships. Kind of like World War II technology in the 19th century, but with magic. Our heroine Sophie works in a hat shop she inherited from her father. The book explains this a whole lot more, how her father passed away, and her stepmother sends one sister to work in a bakery, another to be an apprentice to a witch, and Sophie to run the hat shop. The movie cuts out the second sister and a whole subplot of her two sisters switching places because they had opposite dreams. I don't know, maybe this was cut for time. Anyway, Sophie is a bit of a workaholic. She works too hard in the hat shop and never takes time for herself. Even when her coworkers invite her to the street festival, she'd rather stay behind and work. Yeah, kind of sounds like me. She also doesn't think she's pretty. Also sounds like me, even though she's actually pretty cute looking. I guess she thinks that she's too plain and ordinary to be considered beautiful, but she's really not that bad. But she does go out into the street fair to visit her sister in the bakery, and runs into a tall, handsome, patchwork-clothed man. In the book, she runs away before she can have a real conversation with this man, thinking that he's a wizard of some sort. In the movie, this wizard saves her from soldiers harassing her, and they escape from the blob men who are servants of the Witch of the West. The Witch of the Waste. And they float above the city to make the moment a lot more cinematic. Sophie tells her sister Letty what happened, and Letty says that Sophie should be more careful. It could have been the wizard Howl, who lives in a moving castle, rumored to seduce young girls and eat their hearts. Sophie says he was far too kind to be Howl, and that he only eats the hearts of beautiful girls. That night at the hat shop, Sophie is visited by a mysterious woman who calls the shop tacky, run by a tacky girl. Sophie firmly asks that she leave, but the woman turns out to be the Witch of the Waste, who saw Sophie with Howl, and she is mad jealous, and turns Sophie into an old lady, and part of the curse is that she can't tell anyone about it. You see, in the book, Sophie was actually mistaken for her witch sister, who Howl was courting, but in here she was seen with Howl, and her boldness towards the witch adds to Lauren Bacall's displeasure. Okay, I know die-hard anime and Ghibli fans hate dubs, but you have to admit, the English casting for this movie was pretty on point. Sophie is shocked at first, but realizes there's no use crying about being an old woman now, and since she is unrecognizable, she realizes that she can't stay home. How's she gonna explain that she's suddenly old if she can't talk about her curse? Yeah, Cosmic Trail says I actually watched it on the dub. Yeah, the English voices for that movie are pretty good. So Sophie goes off to the wastes where the witches live, and in the book, she visits her witch sister, but she's unable to help. Sophie comes across a pole in the ground and thinks that it will make a good cane, but there's a scarecrow on the other end with a turnip head. Hence the name Turnip Head. Very creative. Sophie leaves the scarecrow, but he ends up bouncing along after her, clearly under some kind of spell. Yeah, this is kind of sounding like Wizard of Oz, finding a live scarecrow just stuck. Turnip Head offers a cane and finds her a place to stay, Howl's Mechanical Pufferfish Castle. Yet, Turnip Head, as he's called in the movie, wasn't as helpful in the book. Instead, he scared Sophie with its bouncy stalker habits. And it was really just like this foreboding force that Sophie was afraid of. Anyway, Sophie enters the castle and warms herself by the fire, who turns out to be Billy Crystal. Calcifer, a fire demon. He senses the curse placed on her and makes a deal with her. If Sophie can find a way to break the curse placed on Calcifer and Howl, he will break her curse. Calcifer is sick of working as a slave for Howl and keeping the castle moving. But he's also bound not to tell her the exact details of the curse. Not much for her to go on. In the morning, Sophie is discovered by Howl's apprentice Markle, who is like 10 years old in this movie, as opposed to being a young man in his 20s, like in the book. Yeah, it's just as well as they cut out the subplot with the sisters. It would have made Markle's relationship with Sophie's sister kinda strange. Yeah, in the book, Howl romances the witch sister, who Markle thinks is the bakery sister he likes because of a spell that made them switch appearance, but the witch sister's glamour was broken by her mentor, who didn't care who worked for her as long as willing to learn. Yeah, you see, this is such a long-winded explanation. The movie cuts all this out and replaces it with more warfare than is in the book. Anyway, the front door opens up to 3 different places: the wastes and the shops of Wizard Jenkins and Wizard Pendragon. Howl uses these 2 names to sell his spells to the villagers. Sophie notices a 4th color on the wheel by the door, but the black one is only for Howl to use. Sophie gets Calcifer to help her cook breakfast just as Howl comes home. The tall, blonde, and handsome stranger she'd met at the street fair. He's impressed that Sophie managed to get Calcifer to be obedient. She introduces herself as Grandma Sophie, his new cook and cleaner. Calcifer hired her because, she needs an excuse to be in the castle and try to break the spell. Howl's okay with this, but he offers to finish the cooking for her. You gotta love a man who knows how to cook. Seriously. Tall, blonde, handsome, and he works in the kitchen. The whole package there. So Sophie spends the next several weeks cleaning the house in a rampage, as it is filthy. She even cleans out Howl's bathroom, which is the worst, just covered in potions and such. Howl, meanwhile, has been going out at night, sabotaging war dirigibles as a giant birdman, which, honestly, I don't think this was in the book. Correct me if I'm wrong. I guess they wanted him to do something other than romance girls. He tells Calcifer that his own kind of wizards have joined the fight, and Calcifer says, well, then they will never be able to change back into a human. And this war has made lots of people lose their humanity. Oh yeah, forgot to mention, enemy kingdom has lost their prince, and they blame this kingdom, hence the war. Yeah, I think the Japanese experience with warfare, with nuclear war and all that kind of influenced this movie. And given the book was written in the 1980s, maybe a little bit of the Cold War was mixed into this too. As Howl goes up to bed, he finds Sophie asleep, young again, which also didn't happen in the book. Apparently in this movie, Sophie gets young whenever she has confidence in herself. I think. It's never really explained. One day, Howl takes a bath and comes running down screaming. His hair is dyed from blonde to red. He accuses Sophie of rearranging his potions, which he uses to keep himself beautiful. Though Sophie says the color is actually really nice. As he's crying, it turns from red to black, which she actually likes better. And Howl says he sees no reason for living if he can't be beautiful. And so he throws a magical tantrum, and Sophie yells, "Fine, you think you've got it bad? I've never once been beautiful in all my life." Once Howl's calmed down into a greasy slime ball, yeah, you heard me right, Sophie takes him up to bed. In the morning, she brings him a cup of tea, and she asks about the Witch of the Waste. And he says, well, she was once very beautiful, so he pursued her. Until she wasn't, so he ran away. Yeah, Sophie rolls her eyes. Men, right? He then tells her that he's been invited by the king as Wizard Jenkins and Wizard Pendragon, his 2 pseudonyms, to join the war, but he thinks that the war is absolutely ridiculous. Sophie suggests that he give the king a piece of his mind, but Howl has a better idea, that she go to the palace as Wizard Pendragon's mother and tell the king what a coward her son is. Well, not wrong there. Sophie goes to the palace, and Howl says that he will follow her in disguise. She sees a chicken-legged dog and thinks that it's Howl. This dog is not in the book either. I guess we needed an animal sidekick for some reason. She runs into the Witch of the Waste, who was also invited. Sophie demands that she take the spell off her, but the witch can't break the spells, only cast them. Now see, in the book, the witch apologizes like, oh yeah, I wasn't supposed to curse you, I was supposed to curse that other girl. Oh well, I guess you'll have to deal with it. Yeah, I think she's an even bigger jerk in the book. A magical barrier prevents the witch from using her magically driven palanquin, so she has to walk up the very, very, very high steps. Sophie carries the dog, getting through it despite her aged body. Meanwhile, you can tell the animators had fun making the witch sweat. I mean it. Watch that scene, you're like, wow, the amount of drawing that went into that. And this wasn't in the book either, but I see what they meant by showing how old Sophie is acting young and spry, and the youth-induced witch acts all old and frail. The witch is put in a waiting room while Sophie receives an audience with the king's magical advisor, Madame Sullivan. And it turns out the dog is Madame Sullivan's and it's not Howl. Sullivan reveals how Howl was her apprentice until he traded his heart to a demon for power. And she demands that Howl join the war, and in return she'll help break his curse. If not, he'll be stripped of his powers and end up like the Witch of the Waste, who Madame Sullivan has made into her actual age, which is old, and she becomes not just old, but senile. Sophie then understands why Howl didn't want to come. She stands up to Sullivan, saying that Howl may be a coward and selfish sometimes, but his intentions are good, and he shouldn't be forced to use his magic for something he doesn't believe in. And for a brief moment, Sophie becomes young again. Sullivan, seeing this, then says, I understand now. You're in love with Howl. Yeah, okay, first indication of this emotion from Sophie, but still better explicitly stated than her feelings were in the book. The king comes in, commanding that Sullivan stop the war, and then the real king comes in to go over battle plans. Yep, doubles. The first king was actually Howl in disguise. Howl and Sophie escape with the Witch of the Waste and Chicken Dog on a flying machine. He lets Sophie drive while he holds off the guards, giving her a magical ring to point her to Calcifer. They crash land in the pufferfish castle and decide to keep senile witch as she's harmless without her powers, and also keep Sullivan's chicken dog for, reasons. Howl comes home, barely in his human form. And yeah, now we're pretty much in the third act, which isn't in the book exactly, and I honestly barely understand it, but I will sum it up as best I can. I don't know if this part exactly is a dream, or it's really happening, but Sophie finds Howl in his bird form, and he tells her to leave, but she won't because she loves him. And she wants to help break his curse, and he's like, how can you help break my curse when you can't even break your own? And she wakes up old again, and Howl is his human self once more, and Calcifer moves the house before Sullivan's men show up at the other doors. The new door now opens up into Sophie's old hat shop, and another one opens into a flower field and a lake, which Howl has prepared just for her. And Howl shows Sophie, who is now young again, a cottage where he used to study as an apprentice. And he says, you guys can make a living selling all these flowers here. Do whatever you want with it. And Sophie knows this means that he's leaving, and he's doing this so that they can be settled if anything happens to him. Sophie wants him to stay, and she doesn't care if he's a monster. And even though she isn't pretty, she still wants to help him. And Howl says, Sophie, you're beautiful. But Sophie doesn't listen, and she turns old again, and says, the nice thing about being old is that you have nothing to lose. Yeah, poor Sophie. Like, it doesn't matter if he tells her that she's pretty, if she doesn't believe him. So, Sophie's mom comes to the hat shop, and apparently recognizes her, and says that she got married again, and wants Sophie to come live with her. But Sophie wants to stay with Howl, actually making a decision for herself for once. The mom leaves, and turns out that she'd been working for Sullivan against her will, and had left a smothering cigar for Calcifer. Yeah, that's the best way I can explain it, sorry. And then there's an air raid on the village. And Howl goes out to stop the airships from bombing the place. Sophie wants him to stay, but Howl is done with running now that he has something he wants to protect. Oh yeah, and Sophie is young again, for good now. Never explained why. While Howl is out, Sophie takes Calcifer out of the house so Howl will stop protecting the shop. The house crumbles. Sophie brings Calcifer back in so he can move it to somewhere else. And Calcifer needs something from hers in order to make it work. How about your eyes? Instead, she gives him her braid. And the house moves on a sort of platform now. Oh yeah, and turnip heads rejoin the gang. Oh, sheesh, this part of the movie is so confusing. The witch figures out that Calcifer has Howl's heart and reaches into the fire to grab it. Yep, still obsessed with Howl, even now that she's completely old and senile. In trying to get the heart away from the witch, Sophie ends up pouring water onto Calcifer, and the castle collapses. Sophie falls into the ravine with Chicken Dog and worries that she might have killed Howl since Calcifer has Howl's heart. And then her magic ring, which, oh yeah, she has, remember? Points her to the front door, well, what's left of it, which is currently on the black wheel. It takes her to Howl's childhood, somehow, and sees boy Howl catch a falling star, swallow it, and it takes his heart, becoming a living flame. Yep, and that's how Calcifer came to be. As Sophie is pulled out of the flashback, she yells at Howl and Calcifer that she knows how to break their curse. Find me in the future! Okay, so wait, did she actually go back in time, or just see a vision of the past? I don't know, this whole door and ring thing wasn't how it went down in the book. Yeah, I agree with you, Bella PinkSavage. What is happening? Sophie finds Howl in the present as a full-grown Birdman. Yeah, the magic has kind of pushed to its limit there. And she kisses him and he turns human, but he's unconscious. She finds the others, asks the witch for Howl's heart, and kisses her on the cheek. And she puts the heart in Howl's chest, and Calcifer is free and a star again. And Howl wakes up and says that Sophie's still gray hair, apparently, though she is young again, is like starlight. It's beautiful. You think so? She says. Well, so do I. And then she kisses Turnip Head because she's apparently giving out kisses to everybody, and the Scarecrow turns into a handsome prince. Yeah, apparently he's the missing prince from the enemy kingdom, cursed until his true love kissed him. But his true love loves someone else. Okay, I'm sorry, what? Since when is that how it works? The book explanation that the Scarecrow was made of the prince's bones and his skull was in the castle, which was why he was following it, and he is turned back once he had his skull back, may have been grotesque, but it made more sense than this. I mean, come on, kiss from your true love? Oh, but your true love doesn't love you? How does that work? How does that work? That makes no sense. So, the prince returns home to stop the war that his father started, and Calcifer comes back because he missed them, and Sophie kisses him because reasons. Hey, wait, can you kiss a fire? And the whole gang lives happily ever after in a now flying castle. So, happy ending! But honestly, after watching this movie about 5 times, I still have no idea how we got to the end. Even the much less romantic book had a third act that made more sense than this. I mean, less romance in the book, but yeah, it made more sense than this. Yeah, Bella PinkSavage, I have so many questions, but I maybe will understand them once I watch this. Yeah, I said, I watched it about 5 times and I still don't understand some of it. But yeah, I will say that this movie made me ship the characters more than the book did. And some things in both the movie and the book didn't make sense to me. Like how in the book, there's a secret door that leads to the modern world, and Howl is actually from our world, which is why he's more technologically advanced. And there was a war in the book, but the movie added more of the war to the climax. The movie also does more with the Witch of the Waste, redeeming her character and making her a character foil for Sophie. Sophie finds confidence in her old age, whereas the witch in keeping herself young, still acts like an old lady, having servants carry her around everywhere she goes, and not really doing much for herself, relying so much on magic. Yeah, those are some of the biggest changes. For now, let's just look at the story's intended meaning. Obviously, this story was inspired by Beauty and the Beast, but it seems the male and female love interests are both beasts in a way. Well, Beast and Beauty. Howl is handsome, but when his emotions are out of control, he becomes a bird man. Well, in the movie at least. Though his curse is more the fact that he has no heart. And which I think means that he has trouble making an emotional connection. The book explains it better. Howl is a playboy in the book, and he never courts one girl for too long. And he really more breaks hearts than eats them, contrary to what the rumors say. And like with the Witch of the Waste, as soon as he sees an imperfection in a girl, he gets intimidated and just gives up on the courtship. He's not entirely a bad person per se, but he is selfish, not thinking about how his actions affect others. His rejecting of the Witch of the Waste, just because she lacked in beauty, resulted in Sophie getting cursed. He is also a coward, afraid of standing up for himself and facing his problems. Like how people lock away their emotions rather than deal with them. And he's really self-conscious, obsessed with beauty, in himself and in others. And he thinks that without beauty, he has nothing. And then we have Sophie, who doesn't see her true self as beautiful either. Kind of like Howl, except while Howl mainly thinks of himself, Sophie always does what others tell her, never doing anything for herself. When she is cursed, she becomes the raggedy old woman that she sees herself as, and is only able to become young again whenever she asserts herself or feels at peace, like when she is sleeping. At least that part's only in the movie. Ironically, becoming old gives her the push to leave her hat shop and find a life for herself. The book has her sisters serve as character foils, how they defy their stepmother's wishes and pursue their own dreams. Sophie and Howl complement each other. He shows her that she can do anything she puts her mind to, and she inspires him to face his problems rather than run from them. He inspires her to chase after her own dreams, while she teaches him to think of others, not just himself. They both are under curses, and both undergo character development. Also, it's not a Stockholm Syndrome situation, as Sophie came to Howl's castle on her own accord and was not kept prisoner. They reach a balance between thinking of themselves and thinking of others. You see, love is a mixture of selfishness and selflessness. Sophie wants to help Howl, but not out of obligation, but because she wants to be with him, and she wants him to be happy. Howl faces his problems not just to help himself, ultimately, but to protect the woman that he loves. So, yes, you want to put the ones you care about before yourself, but it shouldn't be a situation where only one of you is making the sacrifices. The selfish part is that you want to be with this person, but not to the point where you won't let them pursue their own dreams. Because Sophie and Howl reach this balance, they can be happy together. But in the matter of beauty, they both have their insecurities. It doesn't matter if they tell each other they are beautiful, they have to see their own beauty and value within. It isn't until they help themselves with their inner problems that they are able to help each other with their personal problems. After all, how can you solve someone else's problem if you can't even solve your own? Alright, so that's everything I have on my notes, and now is the time for you patrons in the chat to lend your thoughts or ask any further questions, anything you want to make clear. You too can contribute to these live stream discussions by pledging at least $10 a month. Just click the Become a Patron button or go to the link patron.podbean.com/beautiesandbeasts. Bella PinkSavage, oh boy, where to start? Yeah. So Cosmic Trail says, I knew Calcifer had Howl's heart since he said, put me out and Howl dies along with me. Oh yeah, I kind of skipped that part in the plot summary. So much goes on in this story. Book or movie. Wow. Yeah, I'd say it was kind of predictable. I also forgot to mention in the book, near the end, Howl admits that he knew about her curse all along. Calcifer had told him, and she was so angry about it. Like, you knew all along you could have done something to help me? Like, we've been working on it. Yeah, Bella PinkSavage says, I really need to watch this. Yeah, the movie is very beautiful and a lot of fun, even if the third act, you're left with a whole lot of questions. Yeah, Cosmic Trail. Yeah, it wasn't explained when Howl knew. Well, I think in the movie, it was when he saw her sleeping and that she was a young woman. I think that's how he figured it out. And it's kind of implied that as a wizard, he can sense when other people have enchantments placed on him. Well, he knew that Turnip Head was under a spell. I think that's what it was. The book kind of explains things a little more in terms of magic and everything. The movie, not so much. A lot of stuff is implied. Actually, that kind of happens a lot with Hayao Miyazaki films. I hope I said that right. Nothing wrong with that. I just noticed that's a trend, that a lot of stuff is more implied than explicitly stated. Okay, and Bella PinkSavage. Is there going to be another charity stream this December, DF? There could be. I haven't decided when it's going to be, because I don't know how my December schedule is going to be. If I'm going to be working a lot at the movies, because I know how the holiday season is, or how much I'm going to be babysitting. But I will consider it. Thank you. Alright, so while we're in the chat here, remember I said that our poll this week was a 3-way tie. Maybe I should only have 2 options on the poll so we don't end up with this kind of tie again. But for December 3rd, our options are Disney's Zombies, Thumbelina by Hans Christian Andersen, and I will also include the Don Bluth film in that discussion, and the anime, The Ancient Magus' Bride. All stuff I want to talk about, but let's decide it now. Cosmic Trail and Bella PinkSavage, you guys get to help decide which we do. So Cosmic Trail. Oh, you're the one who voted for Ancient Magus' Bride. Okay, and Bella PinkSavage voted for Zombies. Okay, so we're kind of torn down the middle here. How are we gonna decide this? I have no idea. Okay, and Cosmic Trail. I mean, based on the ending of Zombies 2, maybe there's going to be a sequel? This hasn't been a confirmation yet. You know, you do have a point. Maybe I should analyze Zombies after... Like if there's going to be a third film, I should probably just do an episode when we have all 3 films. It did seem to be implied at the end of Zombies 2. Do you agree, Bella PinkSavage? On that note... Then maybe we should put a hold on Zombies 2, see if there's going to be a third one. Because if so, then I guess we could do Ancient Magus' Bride. Which also means I'd have to rewatch a couple of episodes. Okay, Bella PinkSavage, that'll be fun. So, yeah. Sorry, guys. Maybe I should have only 2. Yeah, I should... okay, well, okay, I'll do Ancient Magus' Bride, because apparently I have to make a decision with a 3-way tie. I'm sorry, maybe I should only do 2 options for the next poll. Although there won't be a next poll after that, because after that will be the Christmas special, which is going to be on The Nightmare Before Christmas. Yep, you knew I was going to do it at some point, and plus I'm running out of Christmas-themed movies to analyze. So, yeah, I guess we'll do The Ancient Magus' Bride. You can watch the anime on the Funimation app, actually for free with ads, or you can subscribe to it if you want to watch it without ads. Alright, and also The Nightmare Before Christmas will be after that. And the episodes will be aired earlier for patrons, streamed for $10 plus patrons, and then released on Podbean for $5 plus patrons. So, if you guys want to hear these episodes early or contribute to the conversation, become a patron. Click that button. Go to patron.podbean.com/beautiesandbeasts. Or you can help support my podcast with Redbubble merchandise. Just go to disneyfanatic23.redbubble.com to see what I have available. That's disneyfanatic23.redbubble.com. And remember that 10% of my November and December proceeds will go to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. And yes, I will try to find a day where I can do a charity stream for Make-A-Wish in December. All right. And thank you, those patrons who were here today. I'm glad we were able to contribute to the discussion, and I am so glad that this week's topic was a lot lighter than the last couple ones. Also, on an extra note, contrary to how depressed I was in the last stream, I'm feeling a lot better now that I know that in the next 4 years, Biden is going to be the next U.S. president, and our Vice President, Kamala Harris. Yeah, I'm going to be a little bit biased here when I say this, but I am glad that we now have our second Catholic president, our first Catholic president since John F. Kennedy, and our first Indian, Black, American, female vice president. Yeah, a lot of firsts with this election. And aside from all that, nice people in the next 4 years, okay? Yay! So, something to be excited about for next year. Hopefully next year will be better than this year. All right. So, stay beautiful, stay beastly. And remember, true beauty comes from the kindness you show unto others. And in the case of this podcast, your kindness will not go unrewarded. Bye-bye.